Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 367 of the All Dolphins podcast on this Monday, September 23rd, 2024, the day after the Dolphins' miserable performance against the Seattle Seahawks 24-3 loss. We're here to do another postmortem, this time with South Florida Sun Sentinel columnist Dave Hyde, where you can find his work at sunsentinel.com and find him on X or Twitter at Dave Hyde Sports. Mr. Hyde, how are you?
I'm much better than probably a lot of Dolphin fans are feeling right now. So,
Yeah.
and I don't know why I am. I mean, it's 25 years of covering mostly a elevator going down on a franchise, and it looks like here we are again.
Yeah, here we are. I'm going to start off, and I told you this before we actually began recording. I'm going to take an L on my assumption that Skylar Thompson actually could be functional and operate the offense to a certain level of efficiency, partly because we did not know, and I had a very hard time believing that the Dolphins would know or have a strong feeling that he just was not able to do the job and would keep him as their number two guy. I refuse to believe that any franchise would operate like that. So I gave Skylar Thompson the benefit of the doubt. They still have the speed at wide receiver with Hill and Waddle, but then it didn't pan out. And despite the fact that Thompson did not get a whole lot of help starting from his offensive line, he also looked, again, out of his element, overwhelmed by the whole situation.
I think the football term is deer in the headlights. Sort of, bobbled snaps, frantic almost in the pocket at times. You talk about quarterbacks with a clock in their head, but watching the game, you had a clock in your head as he's standing on the sidelines, looking, and a guy's coming rear end him like a car from behind, and you're like, get rid of the ball, and it's mystifying to me that this franchise back in February, March sat down, Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer, and said, we can win with Mike White or Skylar Thompson when.
Yep.
And you look around the league, what teams are doing. Green Bay with Malik Willis has won a couple. Sam Darnold in Minnesota's 4 touchdowns yesterday, and it's won 3 games. Justin Fields in Chicago. Andy Dalton won a game in Vegas. I mean, it's almost like the story of backups and second acts for quarterbacks, right to Geno Smith.
Yep.
And so it's mystifying to me that Mike McDaniels came and resurrected Tua and has a reputation of a quarterback whisperer, and didn't see that, or he falls in love with guys. And maybe fell in love with Skylar. That's a good coaching thing, and it's a bad coaching thing. But to me, the backstop is he's a first-time coach, and you got a veteran GM there, and he's got to backstop that decision and say, we need a guy in here. We have a window to win. We can't let the season go down because we don't have a second quarterback.
Yeah, except that's not really Chris Greer's personality now, is it? He's more along the lines of whatever you want, Mike.
Well, that's not what they need now. It's not what they needed when they hired Brian Flores. When they went down this road of tanking, I said it's all on Chris Greer. It's all on Chris Greer, from making the culture, making the draft picks, making everything work, and look at the product.
It has been suggested that maybe the Dolphins were reluctant to bring in a higher caliber second quarterback because Tua's contract was unsettled, and it would make the situation maybe a little bit dicey or touchy. To which I would say, then could work that out more quickly if Tua was your guy, which is what the Dolphins said from the beginning of the offseason. Or when you bring in somebody, explain to him that you're bringing in somebody, and then Tua is our guy. We're going to sign him to that extension.
What are we running? A pro football team here, or a therapy session? I mean, get a real quarterback in there. Look, Jimmy Johnson has said many times throughout his football career, in the NFL, the second quarterback is the second most important guy on your roster, because if the season goes to him for 4 games, those 4 games can sink your season or make your season. And you see it time and time again.
Yeah, but I'm not wrong when I'm saying that was part of the equation, that there's some people.
Yeah, no,
that it was like,
I've heard that too. And again, I don't, I'm kind of mystified. I never really expected to be in this spot where, yeah, the backup quarterback. The Dolphins should have had enough talent by now to carry a backup quarterback against mediocre teams like Seattle, and now here comes Tennessee, New England, and then Indianapolis. If you could have you say you got to play 4 straight games against a backup with your backup, or now third string quarterback probably. You would have picked these 4 games on the schedule because they're the soft spot.
But this is where I might throw out there, that is it possible that we've overrated the Dolphins' overall talent, because they have a lot of big names, and this is, I think you and I had talked about this last week. This is going to be the time when the defense needs to step up and maybe win a game. And overall, this was the same thing against Buffalo. If you look at the overall numbers, it's not horrible. And especially like in the second half, the defense played great, didn't give up a point until the last touchdown drive. But they also gave up 151 yards and 17 points in the first quarter at a time when you're hoping that you're not forcing Skylar Thompson to play from behind.
Yeah, there's to me, the story of the defense. And 3 of the first 4 possessions Seattle scored on. Now, in the 4th possession, the defense gave the offense the ball at the 6-yard line of Seattle. And is Chris Greer still chuckling about people who make fun of the offensive line or question it, because they tried to run up the middle right then, and they couldn't. They tried to run. They got it at the 3 later. They ran twice up the middle and couldn't do it. Mike McDaniel had the first possession, 4th down and 1 at the Seattle 39, and like 100% he goes for that, right? 100%.
Yeah.
And yet for the second week in a row, you go to Buffalo, 8 seconds left in the first half. They have the ball, I think, at the 8. And they kick a field goal rather than one more play into the end zone with Tua as your quarterback. I mean, and so Mike has lost, it looks, the way he's coaching. Yesterday, 4th and 1 at the 39, and he tries a 57-yard field goal instead of going for it on 4th down. It looks like he's lost trust in his own offense.
Yeah, that boggled my mind when they made that decision, because, again, you have a kicker who struggles from long range, other than game-winning situations. We'll give him that.
Yeah.
You struggle from long range, and you miss, you're giving Seattle the ball at the 47. I mean, is that really much? Again, then the odds that he's going to make it, I mean, go for the first down, seriously. Yeah. And the analytics said strongly favors going for it. So that was weird. The end of the first half play, where McDaniel explained after the game that he was looking for a repeat of what happened against the Chargers last year, which is basically draw a DPI in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
The play started from the Seattle 49. Why are you not just chucking in the end zone? And this is where maybe get Eric Ezukam on the field, because he's 6'2". You get one of your tight ends to go down there and try to win a jump ball, instead of, again, counting on, again, a DPI. And this is where Skylar, instead of also, if the idea is to try to get a DPI, you can throw it to somebody who's covered, and the idea may be that there'll be contact, as opposed to just hanging on the ball, and getting whacked from behind. It just was weird. The whole coaching was weird. I have not liked his work the last 2 games in the least.
Yeah, and the other large component, and I get all the attentions on the quarterback, backup quarterback, but this offense has struggled this year. They're the least scoring offense. This is a mind-boggling stat. 11 points a game, the fewest points of any team in the league right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, New England's second with 13. So they're 2 points behind the team that put up 70 points against Bronco. And for the most part, except for Seattle, the first 2 games they had the components. They had more components than last year. Put up 70 points against Seattle. Now is averaging 11 points. It would take 7 games to put that up. I mean, so I'm asking you because I have defenses solved what to do. I think Sean McDermott has. The Dolphins scored 20, 14, and 10
Right.
against the last. Have they figured it out, or is it? I don't know how you figure out Tyreek Hill. I mean, he's that good that you you can try to take him away as Bill Belichick would do, bracket him, but that should leave somebody else one-on-one, and you got other talents out there.
Well, this is the part. Do they though? This is the part where again you're looking at your backup wide receivers. Yesterday, it's Braxton Berrios, Eric Ezukama, and D. Eskridge, the last two elevated from the practice squad. At tight end, Jonnu Smith's a nice player, and again, because we all do this and because fans do this, all of a sudden he's going to become the second coming of George Kittle or Travis Kelce. Look what, and this is where you and I have been in this business long enough. What you hear in training camp with all the hyperbole of what this guy's going to do and the prospects and the hope, it's a lot of words and the regular season starts, and Jonnu Smith has been pretty much a non-factor.
Yeah, see, I'm one of those who thought Jonnu Smith had a chance to be really good because I looked at the quarterbacks he played with. The best quarterback he played with was Ryan Tannehill, and he was just coming in the league then. And so, he played with Desmond Ridder. He played with Mac Jones in New England with that offense, and so I thought, okay, I get why they think, but I thought Mike McDaniel 3.0 would have a new wrinkle, a new something that, okay, what's it going to be? What's the magic act going to be this? And so far, nothing.
Yeah. And this is where, again, because they're not particularly good in the trenches.
Yes.
Taylor's a hell of a player. Calais Campbell's a hell of a player, but he's 38. He can only play so many snaps. Outside of that, they're not very good in the trenches. And this is where, again, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm going to say, and you look at the offseason, they lost. Look what they lost in the trenches. And it's really coming to the fore. Robert Hunt, physical guy. Now he was out part of the year last year, obviously with injury, but very physical offensive line. Then on the defense, beyond the injuries, and Jalen Phillips, bless him, amazing recovery, but he can't be 100%. And he's playing well. I'm not saying he's a problem at all. You see, but he's probably he's going to say next year, "No, I wasn't 100%." So, but who would be? But then you look at Christian Wilkins gone, Raekwon Davis, a quality backup, gone. Andrew Van Ginkel has 3 sacks in 3 games, and Brian Flores' defense in Minnesota. So on top of like Chubb out, they're when you're relying on it, and again, you bless guys who are 33 and 38 coming into your defense and their savviness and all of that. But that's not what wins in the league. And I'm not saying that these guys are the problem, but what wins the league is young guys coming into their prime and stepping up and are backed up by those veterans, those savvy veterans, or changing out plays with those guys. And the Dolphins, again, have the oldest roster in the league. And that's not – when you look at Kansas City's reinvented itself on the fly, and I believe has the 4th youngest roster in the league, that's what good work looks like in the front office.
Yeah, and they nailed draft picks, which the Dolphins haven't done. And again, it's a tough situation. I've always maintained that the Dolphins, because of their style of play, have a much smaller margin for error than other teams. Because again, their defense has been okay, but it's not a dominant. It's not like Pittsburgh, for example, which will keep the team in games no matter what, no matter how peddling their offense. Their offense is meh, but they're 3-0 because their defense completely balls out and keeps them in games week after week after week. And then we could say the same about Cleveland last year. Now, Cleveland's not the same this year, but Cleveland last year, the defense always kept them in games. The Dolphin defense is not that good. It needs the offense to contribute. And again, because the margin for error, because everything is based on timing, precision, and all that, because they can't just overpower teams when things are out of sync or defenses throw things out of sync, all of a sudden it's like, oh, plop.
And the other component that came to the fore, and Seattle had 11 penalties too, so part of it might have been the refs were throwing flag. But I looked on replays, like Julian Hill, 4 penalties, and every one of them looked like a legitimate call.
Yeah.
And 11 penalties that once they lined up 4 straight snaps from center with penalties. That to me is, you look at the Adam Gase years, he said, I don't care about penalties. And it showed. Then you went to Brian Flores. All of a sudden, they were leading the league in fewest penalties. They were right there at the top of the league every year, and very disciplined team. Now we're going the other way again. To me, that's a tell for, okay, there's other things going on that are going undisciplined that the naked or uninformed eye can't see. But when you're having that many penalties. Now, how do they keep playing Julian Hill? What's the number where a guy gets yanked out? 4 penalties in one game? Was it 5? Is it 6? Is it 7 that you get put on the bench and said, we cannot play you until you figure it out? Because I tell you, not many coaches are going to let a guy who has 4 penalties in one game keep playing.
He had the most snaps, as documented on Miami Dolphins on SI.com. Plug. Julian Hill had the most snaps of any tight end on the team yesterday, despite the 4 penalties. And another thing also, do you know we played 3 games, unless my math and my memory fails me, the Dolphins have 5 penalties for illegal formation on the new kickoff, which basically means a guy moving before the ball is fielded or lands. I mean, this is like discipline 101. Something is amiss there. That's a sloppy team that's not well coached.
I was going to say, and if they're doing sloppy stuff like that we see, there's a lot more slop on the detail work of timing and finesse and technique that we don't see. And why is that? Why is that going on? And I don't get it. And I get everybody made fun of Brian Flores and didn't like him, but that was a tough team. He was a tough coach, too tough in some respects, and handling, and I'm not defending how he's talked to Tua, but how he squeezed talent and wrung discipline and toughness into the team, it's night and day compared to what's going on right now.
So this episode is titled "What Now for the Dolphins." So let's start at quarterback. What's your gut feeling or your preference? Who do you think should be a quarterback for the game against the Tennessee Titans next Monday night? And again, this is an opportunity for the defense to get takeaways because Will Levis is loose with the ball, and I'm being very polite.
Yeah, I would think they go a very short leash with Tim Boyle. Just from the standpoint, he didn't look awful. He actually should have had a touchdown pass.
Which one? Just Durham Smythe?
You got to. These are the big leagues. You catch that. You got 2 hands on the ball. You bring that in. Would have been a good catch, but again, these are the big leagues. But they picked up Tyler Huntley for a reason, and so the question with him, he was in the camp 2 days last week, and how quickly can he pick up enough of the offense to function in a game and feel comfortable? I don't know. I saw Chad Pennington come in 1 week, and the next week he was off and running as a starting. Now he was an exceptional, that was an exceptional guy. But I think they'd want to play Huntley, but I'm not sure he's ready just yet.
Yeah, no, Chad Pennington was different. I saw his first practice with the team after they picked him up from the Jets. I'm like, the Dolphins had built up the team with a bunch of veterans. All they needed was a quarterback. And I see that first practice, and I'm telling my colleague over here, Dolphins are going to make the playoffs. So now I'm going to point that out because that's a W for me, and I can document it if I need to. And I'm going to take the L on Skylar Thompson being able to do a good job again in his first start. So.
I thought Skylar Thompson. Now, you were out there every practice in the summer, and I was out there maybe 3 times a week, and so you saw a lot more. When I was out there, in fact, I wrote a column saying they need to dial up Ryan Tannehill right now and get him in here, and because I wasn't seeing anything from Mike White or him in anything, and it's the mystifying part to me is I get that Tua played 18 games last year, but any team in the NFL is walking on eggshells with their starting quarterback, much less the Dolphins with what Tua has gone through to this point. And now you say what's ahead for the Dolphins. We're moving ahead. I'm moving ahead a little here, but they got to get another quarterback in here who, and not this season, I'm sure, but they got to invest in another quarterback. You cannot, and this is on top of the big contract they just gave to him, but you cannot, someone's got to protect the organization right now.
Yeah, and I was on record as saying that even though neither of them played well in training camp, Skylar Thompson was more effective in the preseason. I felt more comfortable with Mike White as the backup because he's had some good games in the regular season, whereas Skylar has not. And there was a small cap savings by dumping Mike White. I would hope that wasn't a determining factor because, again, that's misplaced financial considerations as far as I'm concerned. Now, ESPN's Adam Schefter was throwing out three names. He's not reporting that the Dolphins are going to inquire about them. Three names that he said would make sense for the Dolphins, and they're all on teams that have three quarterbacks. So maybe they'd be willing to trade them to get a draft pick. And he mentioned Zach Wilson, Russell Wilson, and Dorian Thompson-Brew from the Cleveland Browns. And Dave, I see by your reaction.
Look. The time for these discussions was in February or March if you're the Dolphins. And I get things have changed, but if you thought you could rehabilitate Zach Wilson, they should have taken a flyer on him back then. And Russell Wilson, can he get you through a season? I don't know. None of those excite me. I don't know, but I don't think anything really that you have the options right now is we're excited. Again, these are issues that have to be solved in February and March in the front office with Mike Greer and Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel talking amongst themselves and saying, where are we? If in game 3 we have to play our backup quarterback, are we comfortable if it's Skylar Thompson to save the season? And they were comfortable, and that's the decision they're going to live with.
No, correct. And we have seen seasons derailed when the starter was out. And I can remember in 2002, Dolphins got off to a 5-1 start, wound up missing the playoffs because they couldn't get solid backup quarterback play behind Jay Fiedler. To a certain degree in 2022, Dolphins couldn't win a game or barely could win a game when Tua was out, even though, as I've mentioned before, there were other factors, including the defense not producing any takeaways, which they did yesterday, which kind of exacerbates the evaluation of Skylar's performance. And Dave, you looked like you had a thought.
Yeah, I mean, Teron Armstead was out most of the times of Tua last year or 2 years ago too. And so, but we've seen it the other way too, where backups have Matt Moore, Ryan Tannehill in 2016. Matt Moore comes in, wins 3 games at the end of the year, and puts the team in the playoffs. So, I mean, again, the importance of the backup quarterback. I'd hate to think they just shuffled that away, thinking we're good with Tua or the contract situation. We don't want to offend anybody's feelings here. Come on, this is the big leagues. Are we running a neighborhood organization, or are we running an NFL team? So I hope it wasn't anything like that. Maybe they just missed, as happens on evaluating somebody.
But then that's not a great look either. I mean, either way is bad, because if they just misevaluated this, and Mike McDaniel is supposed to be an offensive guru, then how could you miss? Is it possible that Skylar was too amped up and had an out of character bad start, that he comes back from his injury and he's going to be good?
Well, I don't know how many times. I don't know.
No, exactly. That's why I'm making a face.
It's sort of the John Beck syndrome. When Bill Parcells saw him play once, he said, "Next, we're moving on."
Yeah.
And I get it. The weird thing is this organization, and I wrote, it was the most comfortable organization that done nothing in August. I mean, everybody was full of themselves, feeling good. Tua saying it's our team, not Mike's team. I've never heard a quarterback, much less other, and it was echoed by other players. And I was like, wow. It's like they were reinventing how the partnership with the organization is between players and coaches. And now, you know, it's like they need some tough love. They need some love when you're down this much, but you need some tough love and shaping up. And again, the perfect example yesterday, and I mentioned this with Julian Hill, 4 penalties. You want to send a message that this is not acceptable to play this way. Sit them down and live with maybe a guy who's not as good as you think, but you have plenty of tight ends on the roster.
And this brings me back to I'm gonna go back to, because we've taken some shots at Adam Gase, but Adam Gase to send a message in 2016, Black Monday was called, jettisoned Billy Turner, Dallas Thomas, and Jameel Douglas, 3 offensive linemen. You're gone because they weren't performing up to snuff. And then also that coincided with the return to the lineup of guys like Mike Pouncey. And then they had like that really, really good offensive line. And the Dolphins were 1-4 at the time, wound up going to the playoffs that particular season. Now, I would not necessarily advocate something that drastic with Julian Hill, but I'm with you. Like how in the hell is he still in the game after getting 4 penalties? I mean, it boggles the mind. So the question now is, what's your best guess as to whether the Dolphins are able to right the ship?
Well, and I'll say this again: you couldn't have a better opponent. No. 0-3 Tennessee, at home. There it is, served up on a platter. If you're a good team, and I'm not saying they are, but if you're a good team, good teams win with backup quarterbacks. Now you're on your 3rd quarterback. We're going into tough territory here for any team, but your defense has to. They've been trailing double digits in all 3 games in the first half. This is a team that felt comfortable playing with the lead last year, did not feel comfortable. You look at their losses, playing from behind. It's new year, but being behind double digits in the first half isn't the script for anybody. That falls on both the offense and the defense. So, but Tennessee's no good, and so then again, they weren't any good last year.
I was about to bring that up. So.
Yeah.
This is it. Also, are the Dolphins going to get good Will Levis again, or are they going to get the error-prone dude who's just, like I said, very loose with the ball? Fabulous stat that was posted on social media by Marcelo Jacques of ESPN from ESPN Stats and Info. The Dolphins, did you know this? The Dolphins are the only team in the NFL that has not led once during a game. The only time they've had the lead was actually after Jason Sanders' game-winning field goal on the last play of the game of Jacksonville. They have never led in a game.
Wow.
That's crazy.
And the odd thing about yesterday's game, which followed that stat, obviously, was they won the turnover battle 2-0. I mean, they you look at 1 for 15 on 3rd and 4th downs. Their rushing totals were bad. The quarterback stats weren't bad, but the one stat you look at for penalties were awful. The one stat you look at first, turnovers, and the defense did have 2 turnovers to set up the offense, but there just isn't enough there.
Yeah, and we're back to the 3rd and 1 problems, because remember there were 3 for 3 against Jacksonville on 3rd and 1 running plays, and then last night, and then there were Buffalo. I think they may have been 1 for 3. Yesterday again they were 1 for 3. And that's not going to. And then at the goal line, they couldn't punch it in when they gave the ball to Achane, and that goes back to speaking to the offensive line, the one where the media is a lot more worried about it than the Dolphins are.
I think they're worried now. Teron Armstead,
yeah,
surprise, surprise, right on schedule. He's, it's no fault of his, but you how many times do you keep investing in somebody who gets hurt all the time, and yet they keep doing it? Odell Beckham Jr. has missed half the games the last 4 years. Let's bring him on. Now, as a good contract, I get they rolled the dice, but they have no backup plan if he's hurt. They have no third receiver. Who's your third receiver?
Correct.
And it's very, very shoddy offseason work.
No, and the thing with Armstead, and again, this is one of those where maybe he needs to play with a rabbit's foot in his cleats or something, because it's the injury yesterday. It's an eye injury. I mean, you want to talk about random, like things that fluky and all that. If the guy was like not taking care of his body and we're dealing with soft core tissues, Devontae Parker, and that would be what the problem was on a regular basis, then it would be like, okay, then you could like take shots at the guy, and for the Dolphins for even like thinking they could be different. This is the guy's fluke after fluke after fluke. I mean, it's just.
Well, yeah, and
regardless
when they signed him, this was the story of his career.
Right.
He's hurt all the time, and they signed him. They signed Isaiah Wynn as their starting guard. New England let him go because while a good guard he's not available all the time. So, I mean, if you're gonna sign injury, they keep signing guys with injury histories, thinking, I guess, they'll change it around. They won't keep getting hurt when they come to us. And, here we are.
Not working out. Okay, before we wrap this up, Dave, come up with something, a brief message to Dolphin fans to provide some hope.
Well, the hope, and you're living game to game right now. The hope is you get a toehold back into the season against a team ready to be beat in Tennessee. A team that in Tennessee, as much as people are down on the Dolphins, they're down on the Titans up there. But you got to hope the third quarterback. Let's put it this way: the third quarterback isn't going to play any worse than the second quarterback this week. Okay, and
right.
So there's the hope that the defense comes through. Somehow they get their best players going again on offense. And Tyreek Hill 5 targets this week, three catches for 40 yards. Jalen Waddle 5 targets, 4 catches for 26 yards. There's your engines to your offense. You got to get them going.
I'll give you one. I'll ask you this question: Where the hell is the cheek motion?
Yeah, that. What happened to that?
I mean, I don't recall. Maybe I think I remember a couple of them in the opener. I don't recall seeing it against Buffalo. I don't recall seeing it yesterday. What's up with that?
Good question. I think that I'm not going to be there tomorrow. I don't believe. I think I have another Sun Sentinel commitment. That's a good question for Mike McDaniel. What's going on there?
Okay. And I will close with my little note of positivity that I put out on social media. At the time we're taping this, which is late afternoon on Monday, the Dolphins, despite the ugliness of their last 2 performances, currently hold the 7th playoff seed, AFC, in the AFC playoffs.
There you go.
How about that? They are among a group of teams that 1 and 2, but by virtue of some wonky tiebreakers, they have that spot. And if the season ended today, their first round opponent would be on the road against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh God! It is like Groundhog Day in some respects, right? I mean,
deja vu all over again.
Yeah.
Here's a question though for Dolphin fans. You can ponder this and write your answers in the comment. If I were to tell you right now, okay, right now you have to sign up for this deal. The Dolphins will make the playoffs, but they will be the 7th seed, and they will have to play at Kansas City. Or take your shot about what's about to unfold, not knowing.
Oh, I would think at this point, right now, with so much uncertainty, you would take the playoff spot and say it wasn't at all the season we really wanted. We didn't take a step forward, but then again, we didn't collapse either. So, what do you think?
Oh, I think if I were Dolphin fans, I would sign up for give me the playoff spot right now.
Yeah.
As things stand right now, yeah, because it's, let's say the outlook is, if I shake my Magic 8 ball, outlook has been better,
So. Yeah, because, everybody like me is saying, well, Tua will be out 5 games, or 5 weeks basically with the bye week, 4 games. But there is no certainty that he's going to be back then either. We don't know.
Correct.
We do not know. I mean, I'm not saying he won't be back, but there's an uncertain factor in all of this.
And it's also not like the offense was lining it up before he got hurt either. So that's
Yeah,
the
right.
other factor.
I mean, going back 6 games, 3 games this year, 3 games at the end of last year, they're averaging 14.5 points.
Yep.
I mean, that's not the explosive, fun merry-go-round offense that everybody like me was talking about for so long.
Correct. The big question always used to be like, can they do this consistently and down the stretch against good teams? Now is, can they do it, period? Which is not a good place to be. So on that note, we're going to wrap it up. I want to thank once again my good friend Dave Hyde from the South Florida Sun Sentinel. We are friends, right? Okay.
Yes, we are. We're still friends. We can, but that hasn't broken apart yet this year.
Okay, I didn't want to throw that out there and have you on. Oh, your friend. Dave Hyde from the South Florida Sun Sentinel. Catch his work on sunsentinel.com, on social media at Dave Hyde Sports. Thanks again, everyone, for watching. Please like, subscribe. We will be back tomorrow with the Dolphins. By the way, for those wondering why there was no news whatsoever, the Dolphins were completely off today. Their work week has been pushed back 1 day because they play next Monday night. So tomorrow is going to be like a Monday with some players speaking to the media along with Coach Mike McDaniel. Wednesday will be a Tuesday. They'll be off, and then we're back to work. So anyway, until that time tomorrow, thanks everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.